This is a full driving review of the all-new Skoda Octavia. This fourth generation here on Autogefühl with Thomas. Exterior, interior and the driving experience. And we also draw some comparisons to the Audi A3, the VW Golf and the Seat Leon, because all these siblings are newly available now in the new generations. And so I would say please join us now in full HD, full screen and full length. Let's go! The front of the new Skoda Octavia is sportier than before. You can see here there's wider front grille, vertical fins, chrome accentuation, and then it leads over directly into the headlamps that makes the sleek line, daytime running light, and it starts with LED from base and optional a matrix LED with dynamic light function. The Seat Leon is the only one from siblings not having this option at the moment. Maybe it comes later, but that would already be one differentiation. And you can see here on the front hood, the accentuations are stronger than before. 4,69 m, 15'4" or 185 inches is the length here of this new generation Skoda Octavia. It's almost the same length as before. And length-wise, it sits between a VW Golf variant and a VW Passat. So Skoda has always been, let's say, in the middle of the VW models lengthwise. Pretty interesting strategy. This is here available as the Combi, the Estate once again, or also as the so-called hatch, or is it a sedan or a fastback, however you want to call it. It's, falling roofline, but with a wide opening hatch then in the rear. This one, of course, here the more versatile one. The other one would be a little bit more design oriented. You can see the main design is above the door handles. This one here with chrome frames around the windows, and we have today here 17-inch wheels with winter tires. That's the reason why it looks a little bit balloonish. 17-inch with summer tires would already look quite sporty. Overall, it ranges from 16 to 18-inch, unless you can go for 19-inch then with the RS models. The IV RS has been presented in a static form already. You can check out that review, and it will later also be available without the IV version. Not so much things have been done here in the side profile. That's not so much different than before. Biggest design change definitely in the rear, where you have the tail lamps now in a more modern way, horizontally drawn with the side light here also in a more modern structure. I think overall it looks a little sleeker than before, definitely. And also interesting info now as for the suspension. You get a base suspension, then you have 50 mm lower sport suspension, a fixed one, 50 mm higher, so to say, off-road suspension that comes with the Scout or also optional for other models. And then there's the DCC, Dynamic Chassis Control Adaptive Suspension, which is always about 10 mm lower, but then with sports and comfort mode. And even more important, maybe the rear axle. So not about the dampers, but about the whole, hardware concept you get then. This is really different depending on the engine version. And the Golf and the A3 have it in the 150 horsepower versions included, and when you go above that. Leon and Octavia, however, do not get it for the 150 horsepower versions. You have to be more. So 150 horsepower is basically the split for either torsion beam or multi-link rear axle suspension. Yeah, so that's also one of the reasons why Leon and Octavia are a little bit cheaper and Golf and A3 are maybe a little bit more expensive. So they have the 150 horsepower split then in favor of the multi-link, and Octavia and Leon, yeah, they do not get it, except for one exception here for the Octavia. Tell you that in the engine part. But you have to bear that in mind. So if you want the best riding comfort, you have to pick also one of the bigger engines, the 2-liter TSI or the 2-liter TDI with the higher horsepower spec. Or the plug-in hybrid version, that will also get it, both on the Octavia and the Leon, but there's also a higher horsepower spec for that. Oh, and I'm glad they did not go for any fake exhaust here. Well done. So there's no fake exhaust police needed here. Yay! The Octavia gets the gas struts. Even the Golf doesn't get that anymore. petrol engines, 3-cylinder 1 liter, 110 horsepower, 4-cylinder 1.5 liter, 150 horsepower. When you get the DSG, dual clutch transmission, also with MHEV then. And then diesel side, this one here, 2 liter TDI, either 115 horsepower, 150, the one you see here, or 200. The latter two ones also available with all-wheel drive. And if you pick this one here with all-wheel drive, it's the only 150 horsepower engine, which you then get the multi-link rear suspension. Interesting. And then there will be the PHEV, the 1.4 liter turbo petrol engine made with the electric motor, 204 or 245 horsepower in the RS IV. And last but not least, there will be a CNG engine with the 1.5 liter. So that's a lot of choices overall. First two details here, the umbrella at the inside of the door, you can get that, and door closing sound. Pretty solid. Then interior here with a soft touch and a structured inside material, that's well done. Also interesting how the new handle has been integrated right there. Reasonable space at the inside door pocket, optional Canton sound system, we'll soon also test it. We can also put up the volume here at the steering wheel directly, and also heated steering wheel is also on the left side. Soon more to the new screens. Here a fabric insert for the decoy element, very beautiful, we see more of that soon. Seats today here, the black ones with animal skin, but you start usually with fabric. And then there's also some mixed seats available, and you can also get a microfiber surface that's also in the price list. And there will also be an RS Sport seat if you like it even sportier. And there is also supposed to be an all-new fabric material called Thermoflux available. I hope we will be able to show you that at a later stage as well. Now let's get inside. And as we know from the Octavia, we already have a lot of room in the front. It is a compact platform, but it already feels like a mid-size vehicle here in the very front as for the space you have available. If you compare our static reviews, by the way, we've already done about the new Octavia, you can see also different seat options, for example. Here, this one with electric support, and the steering wheel manual goes like this, and a good smooth process. So you got a comfortable seating position also for tall people here in the front. Maybe with 1.86 or 6'1". Some people say I would be even taller. I think I have to, remeasure at some point. Maybe it's 1.88 as well. I don't know. I'll see about that. So here, the headroom, still some left, although we have the panoramic roof here. If you want more headroom, you don't pick it, but this is a very interesting new thing here. So you have these sliders. So you slide here with your finger back for the shade, and the same thing also for the roof. If it's better than the physical button, no. I think, but it's maybe like but it's new. Interior overview, soft touch here on the top dashboard, then a beautiful fabric insert here. This is a great trim or great design option definitely, and also with the bright aluminum style they have here. Digital instruments are now standard. At the world premiere, we first thought analogs would be still available. That was updated meanwhile, this information, so only digital instruments in 10.25 inch. Right side either a smaller 8-inch or this one here a 10-inch. That's the biggest one available, and you can see there are no physical buttons here, and the lower part is a slider for the volume. And by the way, volume, Canton sound system. That sounds good. So pretty neat sound from that, crystal clear. And this slider, I think I wouldn't use it. I would just use the left knob here at the steering wheel. That's the better way than to control it, definitely. The right side here, you can control the digital instruments, like with this, right and left, and then up and down with this. Zoom more to the digital instruments and also zoom more in close up to the screen. Here you have some hotkeys, how you can also use the screen, for example, the driving modes for the DCC, dynamic chassis control. Climate unit, however, well, you have either here, this always stays like this for minus and plus with the temperature. These systems are set out to be that you use auto AC 22 degrees Celsius and that's it. If you're one of these users, you'll be fine. If you're a manual climate user, yeah, then you don't want to have it. They have these climate programs now, like warm my feet or warm hands, so it makes it easier for you or not. I don't know. This is in the classic AC unit, but again, soon more heads up to that. So handy or mobile phone, we only say handy in Germany. Mobile is like a wrong English word which is not used in the native tongue. Interesting, right? So mobile phone here, either with inductive charging or with cable, 2 USB-C devices, but you can also use adapters. I would use the Apple CarPlay Android Auto both with cable. Apple CarPlay is also available with wireless, but cable connection is just, more constant, doesn't give you so much problems. Then shift by wire, first time for the DSG shifting lever, pull it back to drive, pull it forward for the reverse mode. It's easier to switch between drive and reverse. It just goes faster because there's no mechanical link. Then cup holders are hidden here, pretty small but adaptive, and the middle armrest well attached. And if you flip it up, then you have some more space underneath. And here you can, so to say, manual control the AC unit. But what I realized is, even in the first step, it's quite loud. In the second step, it's already very loud as for the vents that are blowing. And the thing is here, it's a matter of philosophy. So in Europe, customers are more satisfied when they don't hear it, and in US, but even more in Asia, customer surveys show that people want to hear the AC working because they think it works better. I don't know. What do you think about these surveys? What's your opinion on AC blowing sound? I think it's more better in a subtle way. Is it just a European view? I don't know. Then again here, plus and minus for the temperature. That always stays like this, even if you are in the home menu. Then you have this app view. I think a little bit better solution than with the Seat menu we've recently seen, also than with the VW menu. Just the Audi A3 menu I think is the best one as for the overview. Then, for example, with the vehicle, you can see vehicle status here or get some fuel economy data. Here, this is for longer journey, but we could get even lower than that. We actually reached 4 liters in 100 kilometers. That was actually quite decent here for the long-term consumption, which I reset it there and then here. And let's go to the Apple CarPlay menu. There's a very good integration with all of the width of that vehicle. We already listened to some music right there, so I think that's very well done as for this respect. And you can always go back to the Skoda menu right there. Overall, I think I'm quite happy with the infotainment system here. Again, as I said, A3 Octavia, Golf Leon, that's how I would rate the software and how is the overview we see here and how we can do things. And the GPS map looks like this. So could be a little bit more responsive, but I think it overall gives you a good overview. Digital instruments look like this, and then with the button or the jog wheel I showed you earlier, at the steering wheel you can then choose what you want to have, left or right, so you're a little bit more flexible, and even more so to change the whole view for that thing. You can, for example, put the GPS map all the way fully through. That's of course one of the big advantages here of these digital instruments. And there's also a head-up display as an option for the speed and low speed, and also some GPS input. And then there's a new voice input available also, like here. Set temperature to 22 degrees.
No problem.
There we go, takes a while, but this would also be another solution, for example. And you can also use it as GPS input, but I tried it out. It's better to do it like in 2 steps. Enter address.
Please say the full address, starting with the city.
Berlin, Friedrichstraße. I need to pronounce it in a more English way.
Pardon?
Berlin, Friedrichstraße.
Did you mean Berlin, Spandau,
Yeah, so
Friedrichstraße.
did find that indeed, and then I can pick it. So it's not the most natural speech input like we've seen with Mercedes or BMW, but at some point it also works. And then the rear view camera, like this, you also have the PDC here on the left side, and the resolution, however, is not the best, I think. Instead of the rear door, hardpack, but we have a manual sunshade here. That's actually quite nice. Then getting inside, and special thing about the Octavia is always you have a lot of rear legroom, although it's not the longest vehicle, and even a little bit better than before, but hasn't changed that much actually. And the same result now for the Seat Leon. In this case, what even a little bit better in the Leon, because the seats here are more voluminous. Interesting. Didn't expect that Seat Leon at one point has more legroom than a Skoda Octavia. Very interesting. Then there's some pockets here, even a special one for the smartphone. You have a very good and comfortable seating position here. Headroom does exactly work. The roofline is a little bit lower than before in the previous generation because of design reasons. If you want more headroom here for even taller people, then you would leave out the panoramic roof. Outside Isofix, you already flip the seats from here. Very, plush head restraints in the middle part. You can fold out this unit here either for cup holders, non-adaptive, or put an iPad holder in here. Then you can use the ski hatch in the middle part like this and reach through. That would be possible. And right here you got another unit. You can get it with a higher trim or optional separate climate unit in the rear, even with a seat heating for both of the outside seats, 2 more USB-C devices, and also a real power socket. Electric hatch we have here today is an option, and 640 liters now for the base trunk setup here for the Estate. That's 40 liters than before, 40 liters more than before. Press here, press twice for this cover. It's a good solution with rails left and right. Here you can see how cabin trolley fits in. It also would fit in this way here, and this is here a split of the trunk. You can use it, you don't have to. You can also remove it quite easily like this, so you can split it, why not. Below that some more space, and interesting is also already flipped one of the seats right there. You just release them right here. There are some hangers, but however, since there's a lower roofline, if you flip everything and also remove this one, the overall maximum volume then is a little bit lower because of the lower roofline. But in the practical sense, most of the time it won't make such a difference then. And let me also flip the other side right here, and just need to put the head restraint down there. It really works. So here we go. That's the maximum setup. Once again, the Octavia is really a loading master. And for towing, you can just use this button here, and then here we go, and you have your equipment ready. What's up? Thomas's Driving Lounge here with the all-new Skoda Octavia, and we'll tell you everything about you need to know about this generation, what has changed the previous one, and also I give you some remarks as for VW Golf 8, new Audi A3, new Seat Leon, recently driven all these three, and how do they compare, and of course here about the engine we're driving today and fuel economy and so on and so on. So let's start with the first details. In general, the Octavia also gives you a very good, neutrally balanced feeling in the handling, and it is a very good price performance deal. Told you that earlier, and it has also been the case before because we have so much space on the interior. And still, it's not that you would feel you would drive a super huge car. So you can easily move it around everywhere, no problem. And suspension also gives you, on the base level, a good comfort. However, you do feel the difference here. The Seat Leon and the Skoda Octavia, both of the test vehicles we've been getting with the engines that were 150 horsepower. In this case then, told you earlier, no multi-link in the rear, but the torsion beam. Germany would be that we have the Verbundlenkerachse in the back and not the Mehrlenkerachse. Yeah, so the less sophisticated form of the rear axle or the rear suspension, and you do feel that. Again, the suspension is not bad, and we also have the DCC, dynamic chassis control, that means adaptive dampers. So this does give you some comfort, and also a span between comfort and sportiness. At the moment I'm in the comfort mode. I'm just talking about, you feel that the VW Golf and the Audi A3, which we've both been driving, and these two test vehicles did have the more sophisticated rear axle, and they were just better to drive, you know, let's say more comfortable and sporty at the same time, you know, on a high level. Of course, when the car is a little bit stiffer, you immediately think it's sportier, but that's not necessarily the case. It just feels like it would be, you know. But again, on a high level, it's still a good comfort you get here from this new Octavia. Just that the A3 and the Golf are better in this respect, or it will be the same when you pick high horsepower versions for the Octavia and Leon. Just again, the difference, because it's very complicated, the 150 horsepower mark is where Golf and A3 still or already get the multi-link suspension, and Leon and Octavia still get the other one, you know, the torsion beam. Then just when you have more horsepower, or this very car we've been driving here with all-wheel drive, this is the one exception that also gets the multi-link, because when you put the all-wheel drive, you need that. So that's about suspension settings, but I'll soon also go to the sports mode when you enter the motorway. We'll also have a high-speed part today. I see everything in line of sight, also with a head-up display. That's a difference to the Leon, where that is not available yet. So the Matrix LED and the head-up display might be coming later for the Leon, maybe with like in 2 or 3 years with a facelift. But here the Octavia already has that, both features actually. Steering feeling is nice, is no dead zone anywhere, good commands to the road. It also adapts a little bit when you go to the sports mode. It gets a little bit stiffer if you prefer that, or you can also set it to the individual mode. Then you can just set different settings you want to have. And here in the sports mode, gears are also turned up higher. Soon more to that when we enter the motorway. Back to the comfort mode, because I want the most comfort from the suspension. It's also very silent in here so far. When we drive faster, we can test it even better, how silent it really is. This is the combination here of the 150 horsepower diesel 2-liter TDI with the DSG dual clutch transmission, with the new shifting lever and very smooth transitions between the gears. And also when you go back and forth, reverse D, then this new shift-by-wire system, which is not using any mechanical connection, is really faster and actually then a little bit easier to use, and also cleans up the interior. Controlling the car while driving is better here than, for example, in the Seat Leon, because we have also a button here for the driving modes. At least you can get in this menu structure than here, then switch it. And temperature control is not with the slider here. This is here for the volume, but temperature control is here on the screen. Yeah, if that's better or worse, that's a tough question. But yeah, I don't really know. What do you think? In this case, definitely Audi A3 is to me the best of the 4 siblings, because the Audi A3 still has the manual climate knobs, and that's of course, yeah, the best thing you can have. So the first thing we'll do is heading onto the motorway, then we'll test some assistance systems and also first acceleration, and then we'll head on over to a very thorough acceleration and a really, really high speed. Changing the vents, by the way, is also a different thing. You do have another hotkey for that to get to the climate menu, have this classic AC feature, or you can go to the smart AC and then pick different modes like warm hands, cold my feet. That's the same as in the Golf. I don't know. I like to have it like in a classic style there too. Maybe I'm old school as for that, you know. New Skoda Scala is there. Quite new vehicle, definitely. Start-stop mode also working. I can, by the way, also stay in the comfort mode if I like, and have the S shifting mode. So if I just want to use that would be possible. In this case, because we want the sportiest feeling, I go to sports mode as well. And we'll have a first acceleration. I drop it to 40 kilometers an hour. And then we'll accelerate to 80 kilometers an hour. So 40 to 80. And let's go. Plop, that was 75 because I need to stop here. They're not driving fast enough. But that always showed you this torque from the diesel is doing a great job. So it doesn't sound too good at, when it's just running or at lower speeds, and yeah, it doesn't sound too bad actually when you really rev it up. But the thing is, this torque is really delivering. So when you need some power for an overtaking maneuver, maybe even if you use it for towing something, you always have the torque from the diesel. That is definitely a big advantage. And also the fuel economy was already good with the new 1.5 TSI MHEV in the Golf, in the A3 and in the Leon. It's the very same engine. Here the diesel is supposed to be even more fuel saving, and it actually is. So we even have a lower fuel consumption right there. So we just below 4 liters in 100 kilometers so far, and that's already like 50 mpg plus regions. So pretty good result for all these new engines, although they all have to work against filters nowadays, at least in Europe. Sometimes the cars don't get it in the US still, especially for the petrols, and diesels are not sold in the US anymore. So I think really better that they really surprised here as well, because in the past years we always criticized with the Volkswagen AG vehicles, so like VW, Skoda, Seat, Audi and so on, that they have powerful and let's say eloquent engines, but they're really high in the fuel consumption. But they seem to figure it out bit by bit, so that's definitely also a step forward. So about the cruise control, you can set it here at the down part, so a separate column at the steering wheel. Also increase by 1 kilometer steps, or pull it up, increase by 10 kilometer steps, or decrease again. This is also with the ACC here, the adaptive cruise control, which has received major updates in this generation, so working in a more sophisticated way. And there's also the active lane keeping assist, but here in the construction site it does have its problems. We had already some vehicles which did make it also here inside the construction site, however. Yeah. So what we get off here, then I can also show you the blind spot monitor. I'll get to the right lane. Pretty stable again from the car, good driving feeling, excellent. And now the blind spot monitor has been activated. You can see it here in the side mirror. It's a very good placement to do that. Good safety feature. So, and now about adaptive cruise control once again. Here we go. So now the speed is being kept, and also the distance to the car in front of me. I can also increase or decrease the distance I want to keep to the car in front of us. And let's see. So now I'm center of the lane. What happens when we get to the side of the road? Yeah, you can see here a slight counter steering from the car. That's really good. And I think also how it's supposed to be. With Mercedes, they do it with brake intervention. I will give you an example of that with the very same spot with the CLA shooting brake. Here, definitely better that they do that with a steering wheel intervention. I really like that. So, however, in the comfort mode, we can also show you a little bit more than about keeping the lane and so on. We'll soon do that, but before that, we want to do a more thorough acceleration. So back to the sports mode. We're also in the sports shifting mode. And let's see, we'll have another acceleration and also see how it performs at higher speeds, noise insulation wise and so on. So we're now accelerating from 50 kilometers an hour to whatever, let's see. So that's 180 kilometers an hour. And I mean, for not sports engine, still a good result, definitely. And here at about, I mean, still driving 170 kilometers an hour, it's quite good for noise insulation. And now 160, let's do a lane change. The car's all relatively stable, but you see with 17-inch wheels and the DCC here, I mean, it's not as stable as I recently had now with the Mercedes CLA shooting brake. So it shows that this car is not set on the sportiest note, but I think it's also okay, you know. And also, I mean, wheel choice is something, and suspension choice definitely too. We're in the sports mode already. Brake feel. I recently heard that the Seat Leon is supposed to have not such a good brake feel. Here. Can't really complain about that. I'll retest it also with the Seat Leon ST, the sports tour, which would be the more direct competitor to this one here. And now going back to the comfort mode and setting the cruise control once again. It's telling me manually now, please drive in the center of the lane. By the way, assistance systems, you can also have a separate hotkey here for that. So, and then you can check, you know, lane assist is on, side assist is on, adaptive cruise control is actually on. So, and then you can also deactivate one of these when something is getting, let's say, too annoying for you or so, you know. In the tunnel now, you can see how it looks like at night. There's also some ambient lighting here, in this case then in green, which is also well done. Also with digital instruments. They come as a standard. Initially it was said there will also be analog instruments, but now when I checked the price list, I told you earlier, only the digital ones are available. Once again, it's actually also a good seating position here for a longer journey. So it is a compact platform still, but it already gives you more comfort than just a compact car. It almost feels mid-size. So maybe, I mean, Skoda Superb and Skoda Octavia, there is still a difference. Recently also had the Superb IV, if you want to compare that. There's also a big review in here on Autogefühl, and yeah, the Superb IV was a little bit more comfortable than this one, and is a little bit more, let's say, sovereign to drive with the longer wheelbase. Makes it a little bit calmer also on the motorway and so on. This one here then has the advantage that it's shorter and you can ease it around better inside the city. You're not getting off the motorway. DCC in the comfort mode doesn't make too much of a difference actually. These 17-inch wheels, by the way, do increase the comfort if you compare them to bigger ones. Visually, I mean, there are more beautiful ones definitely, so but I think with proper summer tires, 17 or 18 can be the best compromise, I think. Yes, at some point 18 might already be too big, so yeah, I think 17 could actually be a good choice then, if comfort is your thing. If the visual part is even more important to you, then you would actually go for the bigger ones. So far, I mean, it's not a car that is arousing too much attention or emotion. It's not that you think like, oh, you know, I'm driving this new car and every day I think like, wow, this is the best feeling in the world getting in this week. But that's also not what the car is for actually. And again, it's about the price performance ratio, and also about, you know, appreciating this rather neutral and balanced handling this car is offering. And once again, that's the case. So I felt that the Seat Leon had a little bit more emotional appeal, so to say, just a subjective feeling. This one, of course, if you think about the four siblings, VW Golf, Audi A3 and Seat Leon, is the master of interior space. That's once more the most important thing here. And that's of course more about what's behind me. And it's really, really hard to beat the Octavia in that. So wherever you need to transport something. And about this, you know, interior materials, that is to me among the best of the siblings. I feel even better than in the Golf. The Audi A3, I mean, it depends. this fabric insert here, this is definitely the coolest. But the A3 then with the metal knurled AC knobs, that's of course pretty fancy and really cool, and like to have that one instead of the other systems we have here. So once more, get on the motorway, and yeah, I think if you compare it to the predecessor generation, they are somewhat similar. You wouldn't really say driving wise they are like completely different vehicles. The thing that really changed is this interior, the more of digitalization. That is the real crucial thing. And fuel economy seems to be better now. Other than that, driving wise, how the characteristic of steering and the suspension and so on, wouldn't necessarily say that you need this new generation if you already have the older one. The older one will also just do fine. There are some thoughts on how new these new siblings, A3, Golf, Octavia and Seat Leon really are if you compare it to the predecessors, and I can understand what you're saying about this. And besides the digitalization stuff, I think I also have to agree in a way. 90 kilometers an hour now when we already have picked up speed. Let's go. This 115 kilometers. So now also do a high-speed lane change here. No problem, but again, due to the tire choice here, a little bit more shaking up. A good autobahn speed would be 130 kilometers. So let's set cruise control to that, and there you can once again see and hear, not too loud from the wind noises. I think the Mercedes CLA shooting brake was more silent, however, but is even more way up in the price. And it's a question if you want to pay 20k more for that or something. But I think still decent overall. So this is Skoda Octavia in the new generation. What do you think? And also tune into the reviews, of course, to the Audi A3 and the VW Golf and the Seat Leon. Leon also coming up as ST, as the estate version. This will also be very interesting to compare it. Overall, I can say, yeah, I can argue again about the control input if that can't be done easier. But once again, very well balanced, neutral feeling. Thing there with the rear suspension at the lower horsepower specs. I mean, it's also this thing that for Leon and for the Octavia you pay usually less than for the Golf and for the A3. And at some point they also have to do things, on technological basis. You can understand that. But I think it's probably, if you are, really want to spend not so much money with the vehicle, go for the very base trim, yes. But one of the things you might want to consider is taking one of the more than 150 horsepower strong engines, or this one here with all-wheel drive, both for Leon and for the Octavia, to get the more sophisticated rear axle. I think you will be happy with that. Other than that, once again, good driving performance here. What do you think? And now the conclusion for today with the all-new Skoda Octavia. I think in the front, especially here with the new headlamp design, and also in the rear, it looks sportier, more dynamic than before, more modern definitely, and I think that's very well done overall. Again, available as the estate or as the hatch or sedan, however you want to call this fastback opening then for the sedan version. You can check out more of that also in our static reviews. Interior, a good build quality, all digitalized now, so some commands are now a little bit harder to put in. That's the disadvantage. Had the same experience with the Golf and all the Seat Leon. Just the Audi A3 still, for example, has manual climate knobs, what I for example, really prefer. Seats are actually good in the comfort, and there are also better choices available, so we'll test more of the versions throughout the Octavia reviews, which will be coming up soon. The best thing here about the Octavia is still that you have so much space on the inside. That's really the key to it, even more than before. So it is still one of the best price-performance ratios on the market when you think about what you pay for it, especially if you don't go to the highest trim, and then what space you have on the interior for that. Still very, very good here with the Octavia, and even better now in the rear. Driving-wise, it's nothing spectacular, but it is a very good balanced, neutral handling feeling once again. I wouldn't say it has changed much from the predecessor to the new generation here now, but it was always just at a good and comfortable level. Thing is, yeah, the A3 and the Golf, they get the better rear axle in the lower engine outputs already. With the Octavia and the Leon, you have to go for a higher horsepower spec to also get a better rear axle. And DCC, the dynamic chassis control, the adaptive suspension is also always a good pick if you want to increase the comfort a little bit more. Very good, and that's also one of the key things here, is the fuel economy. The 1.5 TSI, which we've been driving in the A3, in the Golf and in the Leon, was always scoring very good figures, so about 5 liters on 100 kilometers were possible. Here, a little bit less than 4 liters on 100 kilometers with the 2-liter TDI in this 150 horsepower spec. And that's of course really, that's about 60 mpg US and even more than 70 mpg UK. That's really awesome. However, if you think about that the difference between diesel and petrol is not that huge, might still be making more sense than to go for the petrol unless you're going for very, very high mileage. And the other thing is, whereas the petrol can be driven very efficient, but goes way up in the fuel consumption when you really floor it, the diesel has always a smaller span between minimum and maximum consumption. You might want to take that into account, depending also on taxation on your market. So, impressions for today. Again, throughout this generation, we'll present you more engine versions. The IV, the plug-in hybrid, will also be very interesting. Also compared to the Skoda Superb, which we've driven recently with the IV. See you there. Also at one of the competitor reviews, Golf, A3, Seat Leon ST coming up soon. They will all be linked in the video description or in the pinned comment, and you can always use the YouTube search, typing Autogefühl, Seat Leon, for example, and then you'll find it via the YouTube search. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and see you next time.